Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no copay. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that. But we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you.
Discover a new path to wellness at Arizona Metabolic Health. Dr. Brian Lenzkes offers advanced medicine and personalized care, treating the root causes of your health concerns, not just the symptoms. Whether you're seeking direct primary care, effective diabetes management, or medical weight loss, with a holistic approach, our team is here to guide you every step of the way. Visit ArizonaMetabolicHealth.com today to learn more about our innovative health solutions.
Hello, everyone. Can you believe it's August? This year's flown by. I can't believe it's August. We're getting, the end of summer. Kids, sorry, you're going to have to go back to school pretty soon, but enjoy your last days of freedom while you can. And everyone, I just want to take this opportunity to let you know on September 6th, I'm going to be speaking at a free community conference in Prescott, Arizona at Yavapai College. And we're going to have some great people there, nutritionists. We're going to have people who do red light therapy and just educate us on how to keep our brain healthy as we get older. It becomes more important every year as these years fly by. So I will put a link to the flyer in the show notes, but it will be at Yavapai College from 9:30 in the morning till 1:30. And that just brings up another point that our sponsor of this podcast, Health Code, Get Health, GETHLTH.com. They're great people. They've supported me on all my medical mission trips and community events, and they're sending samples out to Prescott, Arizona. So you'll have free samples if you want to come listen to us yammer on for a little while. But thank you, Health Code, for making that possible. They have great chocolate macadamia and vanilla flavor, and we're going to blend it up right there so you can have some good stuff while you're learning and you can nourish your brain. I'm really happy to be partnering with them because the garbage they're giving our seniors right now, our parents, it's unbelievable with seed oils and processed stuff and sugar. And Health Code gives us another option. So look them up, support them, and they're doing great stuff in the community. So please continue to support them. And we thank you for your continued support. Hello, and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I have a new friend of mine from Arizona. People know I'm spending a lot more time in Arizona these days, and no one knows me there. No one knows what I do. They don't know about metabolic health. And then I run to this lady and she's like, oh yeah, I know Jason Fung and I know all these people that you're talking about. I was like, wow, this is wild because so many people have no idea. So Jen Beyst, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, and now I'm going to see if I can say
it,
even though I know it. Cognitive Function Development Center. That's a hard thing for me. I would just use the letters because that's a complicated thing for doctors, but awesome stuff. Like something I didn't know anything about till I met you. So welcome.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here.
Yeah, another Prescott person, and so tell people how you got into what you're doing, like what you're doing, because it's something that I think most people aren't going to know. If I don't know about it, I mean, a lot of people may not know about it.
Right. Well, so we are Cognitive Function Development Institute, and we actually started this whole journey back in Minnesota, which is where we're from. We did this great change to come to Prescott about 9 years ago, but prior to that, we were in Rochester, Minnesota, and we had some kids, our own children, 3 of them that are grown up now, that were neurodivergent. And at the time, that isn't really what we would call them, but what they were dealing with was different, difficulties with their learning or with their functioning, emotional regulation, that type of thing. And so I was on this mama bear quest to figure out what we could do to make things better. And along the way, I ran across this great world of neuroscience, of neuroplasticity, the changeability of the brain. And although, my background was a little bit more in educational therapy, I migrated over into this other world. And my husband and I then pioneered this methodology that really makes a huge difference for people's cognitive functions and their emotional regulation because these things are paired.
Amazing. And I think the more we're learning, I mean, if you asked me about this stuff, 5, 10 years ago, I would have said, yeah, okay. Like, just take this drug, do these things. And we started realizing how much of an impact our nutrition, our health, our outlook on life, sleep, stress, all these other factors, and how it affects our cognition and how we see the world, and especially being in an area where we have more people with dementia and Parkinson's, we see all these neurodegenerative changes, and we think, how can we help or prevent it or catch it early? Um, and again, when you say neurodivergent, is that more like when people say on the spectrum, like the autism spectrum or things like that?
Yeah. So yeah, yes, we had that going on, auditory processing issues. We had dyslexia and we had ADHD. And so, just not real typical, not easy learners, not easy interactors. And so we did a lot of things that were trying to help those conditions along. Um, but now we've migrated over and we work with people ages 6 all the way up to 86 is the oldest that we've actually worked with. And it's just an amazing, fun way to help people change their function.
Yeah, so how do you initially you do some testing, you talk to them first, then you do some testing. Like, who's the ideal person to come to? Like, a child with learning disability, attention deficit, um, agitation, acting out. I mean, mental health is a part of this with anxiety,
Yeah.
social phobia, things like that.
Yeah, so our modality is really suitable for a broad range of individuals. And so, like saying, what's your ideal client? Well, ADHD is something that we really hit out of the park. We do that really, really well. And in a lot of cases, we can do it relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things. People have avoided medication. They've gone down on their medication dosages and they've eliminated medication altogether. Although, I mean, I'm not saying that that's what they have to do. I'm just saying that's happened. We also do really, really well with individuals who have PTSD, anxiety, because a lot of those are nervous system based. And a lot of times when we do the assessment that you were talking about, kind of the objective testing in the beginning, we're actually getting a measure of these underlying cognitive functions. And when you take cognitive functions and you help lift up what's low and you get everything kind of balanced in the middle or up higher, you end up with people who can function and regulate better. It's really an awesome thing.
Yeah, so some people they may be, they're very attentive, for instance, but then they can't control their impulses, right? So
Right.
kids who have trouble acting out in school or,
Yeah.
drawing attention to
Yeah.
themselves in class and things like that, you say, well, they're just not. Once you like you were explaining that how you even out these different
Hmm.
temperaments and how you can get a better person, like you can communicate or you can think before you talk.
Yes. Yeah. It's
Would that
it's
even work for
really
husbands?
it does. Yes.
All right, because so many times I'll be able to. I'm about to say something to my daughter. My wife says she doesn't even say anything. She just her look on her face like, "Don't say it." I'm like, "Okay,
Right.
I got it. I'm not gonna say that."
Yeah, okay, so executive attentional network, kind of prioritizing what is and isn't good to say, that can be part of it. We see a lot of individuals though who really are struggling with working memory. So working memory is what allows you to update information. And so many of people who are struggling, it's like it looks like they have difficulty learning things, but it's actually updating information. And this can carry on into adult life. And so when you're dealing with that in adult life, boy, there can be frustration because it's like, didn't we just have this conversation? It's like Groundhog Day. It's the same thing over and over again. And that kind of translates over also into patterning, where people get into sort of destructive patterns and they can't break out. And what we'll find on our objective measurement is that, you know what? That working memory is weak. And when you change the working memory, which is hard to do, if this were like really easy, nobody would need us and they wouldn't need you, right? Because we would all just we would have just blink our eyes 3 times and things would be better. So it's not easy, but it is simple. So I know that's a little bit of a balance, but anyway, you target it, you do these things that we do, you do it in the fashion that we do them. And part of it is the way that we interact with people is fun and engaging. So we have to sort of trick the brain and nervous system into doing things so that it'll play along instead of resisting. Because one thing that's really true is that people, and I know you see this, it's people have really good intentions. They want to be more metabolically healthy. They want to do this, that, or the other thing better. But there's something that seems to be preventing that from happening. And preventing that from happening can be weak working memory, weak encoded memory, this brain and nervous system, this whole system it's off balance. It's kind of like if you were to think about an orchestra. So let's say we've got all these different sections in the orchestra, and then you have your conductor. Now, your executive attentional network, we'll call that the conductor. Now, that one is supposed to be making every other thing work. I mean, like saying, hey, you're supposed to be over here and you're supposed to be over there. And what happens is sometimes the executive is like looking at, well, the flies over here, or maybe the butterflies. And the other things are doing whatever they're doing, which is not playing together well. Sometimes it's the drum section, and let's say the drum section is like the working memory. The drum section is on a whole different beat, and everyone else is trying to play this and it's trying to play that, and it just becomes a cacophony, like chaos in the brain. And so what we do is we help to get everything to harmonize, to get everything to work together well. We use what's called simultaneous multisensory. That's at the same time many senses, because if you can coordinate many senses at the same time and do it in a fun way, you're going to make that brain change really nicely.
God, that's
What do
really
you
exciting, because I know that's the thing is like someone has their trombone section playing super loud and you can't focus, you can't remember, and there's so many factors involved. Like not even as we get older, not be able to hear as well. So you never,
right?
one of my patients, it was actually funny because he came in and his wife came in and said, "Hey, I want you to send up for a hearing test." She goes, "He can't hear." I tell him a story the next morning. She goes, "Either he's losing his mind." So we did a mini mental status on him. He's perfect. He got everything right. So I sent him for a hearing test. He passed the hearing test with flying colors. And then I had him come back for follow up. And I said, "Hey, your wife's concerned that your memory, you're not hearing things." And he goes, "Doc, you can't tell her this, but she starts telling stories and they're so long that I just tune out. I just tune out and thinking about other stuff. And then the next day she'll say, 'What do you think about what I said yesterday?' And he's like, 'What do you, I don't remember.' And she thinks he's forgetting it all, but he was never listening. And that my mom was a hairdresser and she would do that. She said, people tell their stories and she would go, yeah, and she's not. And so I'd be telling her a story. I go, 'You're not really listening, are you?' And she go, 'Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking about what I have to do tomorrow.' So many people tune
Right.
out, they never get the original message.
Yeah, that is really true. That is true.
So he's like, "Don't tell my wife. I'll be in trouble. Just tell her I have a hearing problem or something." So when you do these
Mhm.
testing, you can kind of get an idea, ballpark at least initially. Is like, okay, here's the area of your brain that's too active. Here's the one that's underactive, and you can
Mhm.
get an idea from that. Do you kind of know when you talk to the person, go, okay, this is what's going to end up being when I do the testing?
Yeah, we really do. But what's really interesting is that we don't do a ton of pre loading of like gathering the data, what happened to you, that type of stuff. We don't really go there. prior to doing the assessment because we just get the basic information. We do the assessment, and then what's really cool is that we can talk to them and say, oh, well, here's what we're noticing. This is low. And so I would imagine that this leads to, and then we can start telling them the behaviors that are tied to the low functions. And they
And they're
go,
elbowing each other, go,
wow,
oh my gosh, she's got
yes,
you nailed. That's right. That's
right.
exactly what you do, right?
Exactly. Yes. I have to admit. And here's another thing though, when people come in and they're just curious or something, or maybe someone else told them to, hey, go do this. And their functions are all right along the same level. Like they're saying they're not really having trouble. The only time you have trouble is if, you're below the line. So if you're way below average, or you've got these big spikes in differences, with strong places and weak places. So that's another interesting piece of it. And I just, from the standpoint of mental health or mental wellness, and overall health and well-being, you just can't overestimate the importance of not only getting, I mean, especially getting the brain and the nervous system working well, but integrating that with the other pieces that we want to have happen, wonderfully as well, like your metabolic health. Is your diet adequate? Is your gut biome great? Are you doing physical exercise? Because that all feeds into how your brain is functioning as well. So even though
Huge,
we don't
huge.
test that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, those are huge points you're making because that's why
Yeah,
it was funny because we have a conference coming up that we're both speaking at, and they were trying to get we wanted to have a healthy. We're talking about healthy brain aging, right?
yeah,
Brain boot camp, and a lot of people are like, oh, this is healthy. We'll have this. Jen and I were like, no, no. And we're both shaking our head no. I'm like, I see her shaking her head no because I don't want to be the one to say anything because I'm kind of the outsider. But it was funny because all this stuff she goes, that's not healthy. That's not healthy for your brain. That's not good for your brain. But it's amazing how much stuff that we think is good for us that we're eating that's not good that may cause worse inflammation in the brain. It can cause high sugars, insulin resistance in the brain, which causes a lot of these derangements that we're seeing. But
hmm,
it's just so interesting how what we're eating, sleeping, doing, what we
yeah,
think about, our focus.
hmm,
I'm curious, like, do you see, and I don't know if you do it with couples, but you see the husband reacts this way, the wife's like, oh, no wonder you guys are having conflict because the way you react is different. Like, some people they want to just
yeah,
not have conflict ever. Other people say they I put up with it forever, then I just lose it because I've had it. It's been 2 years you've been doing this thing, leaving your shoes on in the
yeah,
middle of the floor or whatever it is. Do you see that
yeah.
too? And you go, oh, no wonder you guys are struggling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, probably the most common would be the person who oh gosh, there's a certain brain organization or nervous system organization where the person gets overwhelmed easily, and it's because the orienting attentional network is weak. It's the weakest. And so what happens is like conflict will come in, and it kind of comes at them all at once, or maybe there's several different things. A typical pattern maybe between a husband and wife, or maybe the husband and the kids. And then the wife is going, "Ugh," getting that overwhelm. And what happens is the response from the brain and nervous system is either to take it and put it on the shelf, so kind of disassociate with it, and so they're just like, this is not happening. I'm not doing this, which then goes over to the person who wants to engage. They have a different organization in their brain. They want to engage, and they're like, she's not listening to me. She's not. And so they escalate, and then this escalates. And so basically you can see these opposites escalating because of, first of all, well-worn patterns, but then also because of that overwhelm in, this person is disassociate or get defensive. That's another one with that orienting is like they get really defensive. And so the person will be perfectly calm and normal. And then the next thing you know, it's like, this really
Yeah.
big response. And then everyone around them gets into their different responses. So yeah, we do see a lot of that, but the better part of it is that when you start working through and making changes to the brain and nervous system, that part changes as well. So
That's why
it
I'm
doesn't
fascinated
have
by
to be that way.
this whole topic, because way back in the day, maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, we started doing low carb keto for people
Mhm.
to get them off of diabetes medicines,
Mhm.
hypertension medicines, and so what we were seeing as a side effect was a lot of these people were more calm. They were doing better in relationships. They weren't drinking as much. They weren't smoking as much. They weren't binge eating
Yeah.
as much. And I was like, why are we seeing this? And so we questioned it. And a lot of doctors attacked us. They go, you guys are crazy. Diet has nothing to do with mental function. It was like,
Oh,
now we have
right.
metabolic mind. We have all these people who are doing great, like what you're doing, great research
Yeah.
saying, hey, if you feed your brain healthy stuff and you get your gut right, the gut brain connection is a huge thing. And I know you know a lot about that too. And so you
Mm.
start thinking, man, if we make these changes, because all the time, the thing that would make me laugh is I'd have couples come in who are metabolically sick and we go, hey, let's do it together. If you guys do it together, our odds of success are way better. And then they'd be in my office and we'd be talking, and I'll say, "So, how are things at home?" And then all of a sudden, the husband would like look at his wife and look at me and look at it. He's like thinking, I could see him thinking, "Should I say it or not?" Then he'll say, honey, since we started eating this way, yeah, like, you're even. Like you don't get upset. Like things I know are gonna upset you, you just say, "Oh, okay," and you don't react as strongly. And she'll say,
Yeah.
I noticed that about you too. And so it's funny to see that people, when you're on edge and you have these sugar up and down and hormone fluxes and
Mhm.
stuff, then like you said, you get that overwhelm. And when people are over, like trust me, I was in a very stressful practice for 18 years, and we were all on
Yeah.
edge the whole time. So like
Mhm.
everyone, like one thing goes wrong and everyone flips out. It's like because you have no reserve.
Yeah.
There's not like if you have 50 patients every 15 minutes and one person's late, it throws the whole day off and everything's a nightmare for the rest of the day. And then people want to come in and you have nowhere to put them. That was really, I don't deal with that anymore, but that was really stressful. And so
Yeah.
everyone was stressed. So if you ask someone to help you with something, no one could help you because they were so stressed with their job. They're like, I don't have time because I got all these things. I got to call these people back. And to be in that stress environment was so, that's why I said I'm out. I can't deal with it.
Mhm.
I'll take a money
Right.
cut. It's gonna kill me. Like working
Yeah.
24/7 all the time. And when
Uh-uh.
I'm at home after the kids go to sleep, I'm doing my notes, I'm getting ready for tomorrow. It's like, wow, you have no downtime. And so many
Right.
people I see in that situation.
Yeah. Talking about, the whole person, I've always been really interested in like the whole person. We're not just the brain. We've got the second brain, which is the gut, and the third brain, which is the heart. And we have, there's just so much to it. And I really, part of kind of what drove me, not only with the kids in order to do this work that we're doing, but also my grandpa had Alzheimer's, and he just watching that decline was just really hard. And then other people in my mom's family kind of were going down that same path. And I just kind of determined I'm not going there. And and so that was really kind of what sparked me a lot with especially like nutrition and metabolic health and that type of thing. I just became a really avid researcher on that, and just for developing this modality as well, diving into the research and watching and reading, what other people are saying has been really important to me, and really reading with a critical eye and making sure that the studies, because we have, peer-reviewed research, and kind of getting a critical eye toward, what is actually the study, how robust is it, who's done it. And so that's been part of kind of the driving factor for me in helping that aspect, paying attention to metabolic health, being one who speaks up and says, hey, wait a minute. Like you were saying, if we're going to have this brain boot camp and we're going to be telling people how to take care of their brains, we can't be feeding them donuts. Not that we were going to feed them donuts, but you know,
Yeah, but the equivalent, right? The equivalent
right.
in like healthy juice,
Juice.
juice smoothies, and
No.
you're like, no, not that, no, not this. And
Right.
we're both like, and I was so happy because I didn't have to be the one. I'm like, oh, Jen's saying no. I'm like, okay, good. I don't. I'm just sitting here and watching. But it's so interesting how it all this works, and I think there's been such a historical disconnect between the body and the brain, right? So when I have someone come
Mhm.
in with ulcers and headaches and back pain, the first thing I say is, how's life? And I say,
Yeah.
or what do you do for fun? People look at me like, fun. I'm trying to survive right now. I've got three kids. My husband's, absent or whatever. And what I realized for me, and this is why I was excited to hear about what you do is okay. So many people I've seen, they go, I'm doing a perfect ketogenic diet. I'm weighing myself 6 times a day. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm not losing weight. And it's like, well, are you stressed? Are you sleeping? Are you laughing? Are you having fun? When you're in this chronic stress, and maybe we could address that a little bit,
Yeah.
there's this early childhood trauma, the huge correlations with obesity,
Mm,
early 20 years or shorter lifespan if you go through these major life stresses and you
right,
never deal with them.
right.
And those are the big things that keep people from success a lot of times. And I have people that I
Yeah.
just had a lady today. She went to the Panama Canal for 3 weeks. She ate terrible while she was there. She goes, I came back, I didn't gain a pound. How is that possible? And then when I started eating the way I was before I left, I lost 5 pounds where I was plateaued for a year. And you go, well, maybe it has to do with the gut microbiome, maybe it has to do with stress level, maybe the amount of
Yeah.
activity you're doing, but the impact of stress is so
Right.
undervalued in what we
Right.
do.
Yeah. And what we find too is that so when there is trauma that's either generational, because that is a real thing, that sets up the brain organization to be in a certain way. Environmental, mental. And here's something that people maybe aren't often aware of, but you can have, if you have like verbal abuse or even neglect, if you have verbal abuse, it's almost like a physical trauma to the brain, like an impact. So people kind of downplay some of the, if someone isn't actually wearing bruises, the result of physical abuse, they kind of downplay that, or they have in the past. But the reality is that the brain doesn't tell the difference between if you're imagining it or if it really happens. That, the physical of it versus what you're thinking, or and so that's like an important component to keep in mind. Also, what we see with early childhood trauma is, of course, that there's no words for that. That was an experience. And that experience didn't have a context because if you were only two, like you didn't have the complexity of language to understand that. And heaven knows you didn't remember it, which is a good thing. And here, that's another piece of it is that, the brain protects us. It is awesome. It protects us from remembering those things that are traumatic because if we remember them, it will injure us psychologically. So what we find is that people sometimes are overreactive. So they have what looks like to us really like out there responses to certain things because we don't know what they went through. And they are dragging along with them the memories that are not, they can't remember every detail, but they're remembering the feelings. They're a visceral memory of what happened. And so they
Yeah.
drag along the visceral memories, which makes them overreactive. And it makes it really hard for everybody around them. So when you do our modality, when you actually deal with that nervous system and brain, and the way that we do it is with oscillations, big word meaning up and down. So if you think of it maybe like physical therapy or maybe like weight training or something like that, or HIIT training, high impact, where you're gonna do a little spurt and then you're gonna relax.
Rest and laugh and yeah, that's
Yeah, and
that's really and that's retraining the central nervous system because what I see is a lot of people with this sympathetic overdrive. And you can
mhm,
correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading, I think it was Dr. Mende was talking about, I think one of the books was like The Body Keeps the Score, I think.
yeah.
And they were talking about if you talk about a traumatic event in your life, your heart rate goes up, you
Mhm,
get these physiologic responses. But if
mhm.
I say, what's one of the most things, biggest good things that happen to you. You don't get the same physiologic response as those
Uh-huh.
traumatic events, like being in a car
Right.
accident. It's almost like your body can't tell if you're in that experience again, and you get all this huge fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And so being able to be in that response and calm the central nervous out, saying, "Okay, it's not
Mhm.
happening now. It's okay," right?
Right. Yeah, and experientially feeling, so you're gonna kind of bring someone up to an acute stress in a fun way, and then the system is able to come back down, and that patterning of kind of being on an intentional safe roller coaster, so to speak,
Hmm. You know
then
you're strapped
gives,
in. You know you're safe. You know we're not
yeah,
going to
yeah,
go to this. Yeah.
yeah, it really allows for the repatterning and that neuroplasticity, that changeability to happen, and so function can change. So I know it's like a lot of words, and we talk about it. It's almost like you have to do it to know. But
When we talk about neuroplasticity, we're talking about resetting some of these connections in our brain and what it's
Mhm.
attached to. And so, is does that neuroplasticity ever go away? I mean, is there a time like with your 86-year-old, they're
No,
less likely that's what's
no.
exciting about it, right?
That is, in fact, I was doing a presentation on it was called Memory Support for Life, and I was talking to the aging population, and and that was one of the things I found a study just the day before my presentation. So it was July 3rd that I found it, or maybe the 4th. Anyway, it was a recent publication from this year that supported the finding of new neurons in the hippocampus. So that's called neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons in the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is a structure in the brain that I like to say that's like the librarian because it goes out and finds the pieces and helps you to put things away and to recall them. And boy, if you don't keep that active, that's not a good thing. That's when we see decline. But all throughout the lifetime, that happens, the birth of new neurons. And, one of the things, a couple things support that. Physical movement supports it, and then brain movement. So, in other words, intentionally remembering things on purpose and finding new things to remember. I think, one of the hard parts is that we kind of get on autopilot. We get older, and the older we get, the more we tend to want to get on autopilot. First of all, the brain hates change. It really does. The brain and body, nervous system, it wants homeostasis, right?
Yeah.
Well, homeostasis, while it may be good for blood pressure or blood sugar, I don't know, it's not good for brain function because you've got to have that challenge and you need to have that stimulation to really make it work so that those transmitters and those connections will stay active. And so,
And even human connection, right? Because I saw it in, in my practice, some of my patients who were in a senior living situation during the lockdowns, they had zero engagement, zero
yeah,
facial contact with anyone when they were
right.
locked in their place because they would knock on the door, they go, wait 30 seconds, come get your food, go back inside. Don't, yeah, that gives everyone was a danger to you, right? And I
Right.
saw the cognitive decline, and I would talk to people, when we could finally do Zoom meetings and they could
Yeah.
see your face, like patients were crying. They were so happy to see someone. You go, wow, that takes a huge toll on us also, like that lack of, and I was thinking about when you were talking earlier because some people like just their way of dealing with it is just to shut down and disassociate. Other people saying
Mhm.
you're not engaging with me anymore and they want to engage with you but you can't. I mean, for me, I think one of the worst things is to have someone upset with you and they won't engage with you because you can't fix the problem ever unless you engage and go, let's try to fix it. So someone's saying, let's
Right.
fix this now and get it over with. Other people are like, I don't want to deal with you right now. I want to let me sleep it off and I'll talk to you tomorrow when I calm down, right?
hmm Yeah, that's definitely patterning that happens, and that's two different nervous systems and two different needs, and sometimes with that, you do also have to kind of, I think when you know better, you can do better a little bit. There's an element of that can happen for understanding, um, and so those complexities are always at play.
So can you
Uh,
change those things? So for instance, if I say, look, this is the way I've always been. If I get mad, I go and punch the wall. Right? You go, that's my way of dealing with anger. Instead of saying, well, can we change how you deal with anger? Is there another way? Because so many people have dysfunctional coping mechanism, but they go, that's just what if I get upset, I just eat
right,
cookies. That's what I do. And you go, well, can we
yeah.
do something? How do we change that a little bit?
Well, again, what we're going to find is that if that is the patterning, there's going to be differences up in highs and lows in the nerve, in that brain. When we do the assessment, you're going to see on the assessment that there's highs and lows, and you got to fix that. And when you fix that, you will see different behavioral outcomes. It will change how the person interacts. They won't feel the need to go do that anymore. Now, as far as eating the cookies and stuff, now we're dealing with a little bit of more, maybe the blood sugar type of problem there. So
Yeah, dopamine
that one
release
may
and
have to have
yeah.
more. That
But
may
you
have
know,
to have.
part of it is when we look at
Yeah.
addiction though, you look at it and go, okay, why is it that you're taking drugs
Hmm.
so much? Why is it that you're drinking? Is part of it's environmental. Jason Fung
Yeah.
and I were just talking about this morning because one
Yeah.
of the things we came up with a while ago, we said, whoever is in the middle of getting a massage or something very pleasurable, and you go, you know what? I'm gonna stop and eat something right now. I need because
Right.
you're in a peaceful spot anymore. So many times, and I think that's part of what we see is when people are in a better spot, they go, I don't really need to eat pizza every single night to be happy. I can, so many people go, and we have this. And I remember people saying this would happen. I'm like, really? Because if you say, hey, look, if you can cut back on sourdough bread, they're like, sourdough bread, you want me to give that up? Are you kidding me? Like that, like life's not worth living without sourdough bread. How about we just do it every once in a while, not 5 times a day? How about if we, and so trying to
Yeah.
figure out what works for that. So because you have to live your life, and some things are might
Right.
tell you all you gotta do is have water the rest of your life to lose weight. Well, obviously that's not that's not something you're gonna want to do, or say you can only have vegetables,
Right.
nothing else, and that. So I think it's it's really what makes life livable, where you can have fun and enjoy it,
Right.
but
But
you know.
but but with the addiction thing though, because we've worked with a lot of people who've had addictions, and they're what we see commonly. I mean, again, it's that working memory and it's the executive attentional network. Those two are the two lowest. And a lot of times their encoded memory, which is, the memory system, what you're remembering is really high. You know what happens with that combination? They're remembering their pain. Or even if it's they are using their substance, whatever that some substance is, to be a band-aid, a medication. It's trying to cover or deal with the pain.
Because it works
The
temporarily.
Yes,
But
it
then
works
afterwards, it's just
temporarily.
like, kind of like a lot of people
Right,
talk about binge eating. You go, I feel better when I'm eating the cookies, but as soon as you're done, you feel terrible about yourself. You're
right.
weak and you can't do anything right, and then you're upset and
Yeah,
depressed because you can't control that, and you're out of control. So being able to be in control of these things is such a gift for
right.
people.
Well, and when you have extreme low with the working memory and the executive, talking to them about it and just saying, "Hey, do this to cope or do that to cope," that doesn't work very well because it's like, okay, Groundhog Day. They don't, it doesn't, the information doesn't pattern in, and you're trying to use a top-down, cortex-driven methodology to address what's really a bottom-up emotion type of interaction. So you got to deal with the problem. And it's complex. It's not just all one thing, but you got to deal with the problem. If you just try to deal with it going top down, you're going to end up probably inducing more shame because the shame will happen based on, oh, yeah, we did talk about that. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Now I'm doing that again. And then you
Exactly
get
right.
your
Yeah.
shame cycle going. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it does take work, and you say, okay, let's work together. But I love when you say, let's make it fun too, because none of us want to deal with childhood trauma. None of us want to deal with our bad stuff. So how do you make
Mhm.
these things fun to work on?
Yeah, part of it is technique, because you have first of all you have to be willing to give stochastic inputs, and that is to kind of be a little bit oddball. And so to be willing to just give some energy to the person that is not going to overwhelm them, but just kind of slide in the humor or the unexpected way of interacting. What we're using to actually do the work are tools that look like, I don't know, arrows or maybe a deck of playing cards. And we're going to show them different cards and have them do different things motion wise or saying things based on the directions we give them with the cards. And the way that we're able to challenge, make it challenge oriented is to be like, okay, you're going to do 5 more of these. Let's see if we can get it done in 25 seconds. You ready? Okay, let's go. So you get that challenge and that energy along with it. And that's part of what makes it fun. And we have to start where people are at because some people just aren't there yet, and they have to start really like slow and easy. And their tolerance for doing things that they haven't done before is pretty narrow. And so we have to kind of ease them into it. But over time, we can get people to a huge level of challenge and laughing. And what's interesting too is say you're doing a simple thing where you're doing motions along with red and black, or let's say letters and numbers. So I'm just going to say letters and numbers out loud in random. And every time I say an odd number, you're going to put both hands up or something like that. So that's kind of an engagement style.
Mhm.
And so they're having to listen along. And then when I say three, they shoot their hands up in the air. And so, I mean, that seems kind of odd, but it's forcing them to pay attention and they're having to track with what I'm saying. They're having to say, hey, is this a number or a letter? And then they're doing a motion or two different motions along with it. So that's kind of the engagement style that we're talking about.
So then you're seeing they're able to remember, they're able to recall, they're able to pattern those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and for example, like if I were to give them the numbers and the letters, I could give them a number and say, okay, I'm going to say a number, and then you're going to add two to that number and say what it would be. So if I said two, you'd say four. If I said seven, you'd say nine because you're adding two. But I would intersperse that. And then when I said a letter, you would have to say the letter that comes before it. I mean, for some
Mm.
people, that's
Yeah, you
really
have to
enough
think
to
about it. Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's working, but both of those pieces are working memory because they're taking information and you're having to do something with it. And when you do that process, you help to strengthen that working memory function, which then helps them update the information.
Because a lot of people as seniors, you may say see this too, but if they're depressed, they could get misdiagnosed as demented when they're just not, they just
Mhm.
can't grasp anymore. They're overwhelmed. They can't think anymore. It's like being a kid in school and you know the answer to something. The teacher says, "What's the answer?" And you get stressed. You're like, "Oh my gosh, everyone's staring at me," and you can't retrieve it. The librarian, as you say, isn't there. The librarian can't get the book you
Mhm.
need to give you the
Right.
information.
Yeah, that shot of cortisol that is like your fight or flight. I mean, that really messes up that librarian, like you were saying. That's a
It's
lot of
some
times we,
some of us are just in that state all the time. So even just
right.
taking 5 minutes to count your blessings or breathe. It sounds so
Yeah,
silly, but just slow that sympathetic nervous system down so that
right.
you can like function.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been doing a little bit more too of like action based, using like I'm rubbing my hand right here behind my ear, vagal nerve stimulation,
Hmm.
vagus nerve,
Hmm.
because that directly helps to, calm that nervous system overstimulation. And, people can do that pretty, it's not
Yeah,
real
it's not where
evident,
people don't know what
it's
you're
not
doing.
like
You're just
you're
like, okay, this person's annoying me right now. Let me do this.
right.
Yeah.
But it's something that can be done that's kind of subtle and it can really help. And I definitely think that those types of, physical interaction type of things like that can be really helpful as well. So
So when you do these, you're doing this one on one with people, but you could do it. You do it online too. I understand. So you
we,
could do it
yeah,
remotely.
we do. In fact, we started doing remote before even COVID, because, of course, we started this in Minnesota, and so we still had some people back there who were really, they wanted us to work with them. We do have people that are still working in Minnesota, but they wanted to work with Brian in particular, my Brian. That's my co-founder and husband. And so we developed really some really great ways to do this work with sharing screens and a lot of it, as long as you can have a camera and, interact. We've worked with people in Canada, in all over the United States. We haven't quite gone around the world yet, but we're hoping to.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so amazing because what I see from my standpoint, when I heard about you, I was like, oh man, because that's this part of it is the hardest part, the brain part, right? When people are stressed,
Yeah.
tense, because that affects everything. It really, really does. People go, oh, it's just in your head. It is. It really is because when you're stressed and tense or have a negative outlook, so many of us have been through times in life. I know I've been there where like one or two or three things goes wrong. You go, okay, now what's the next bad thing that's going to happen? It's going to happen,
Right.
right? Because you're waiting for it now. And other people just go through life their whole life going, I'm just going to have a positive outlook. Things go wrong. They go, oh, no big deal.
Hmm.
My house burned down. Like a
Right.
good friend of mine, his dad's house burned down in San Diego here. And he was like,
Oh,
oh God, he took him 2 days to tie. He said, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. I'm like, I feel so bad for him. And, he
yeah.
went and was standing with his dad right in front of where they had a big, huge garage with a bunch of stuff in there. He's like, how you doing, Dad? He's like, oh, I'm so happy right now. He said, you're happy right now? Why? He said, I kept thinking about having to go through all that stuff and sort it out. And if I died, like I'd have to do that. He goes, now I don't have to worry about it anymore. So he was like, seriously? He goes,
Wow.
that was his attitude. He was like, oh, well, it's just stuff. Like we're survived. We're all good. Like having
Yeah.
that perspective, I think helps. Like you don't get that. You could be stressed
Yeah.
and yell and jump up and down, or you could say, hey, look, it is what it is. I'm going to move on with life.
Hmm. Yeah, and the brain is interesting that way because like and what you're bringing up is really two things, the negativity bias, which really the brain does have that, and that's really based in their survival network because I know that some people like to posit that, their survival network is something primitive, like it's reptilian, which always drives me nuts because I'm like, there is not one thing about this brain that is primitive. It's all purposeful and it's extremely complex. It's beautifully complex and functional. And so this survival network is actually, I mean, it's doing its job. It's trying to keep you alive, right? That's a good
That
thing.
and it's not just it's the whole organ. Your body is doing that. It's
Right.
like, well, why do I get
Yeah.
fat? Why would my body let me get fat? Because if you don't get fat, you get diabetes. Well, why does it let me do this? Well, because if you don't do that, that's going to happen. And so you realize it's always trying to help you.
Right.
Why is it that my body's making me store fat? Because you're stressed all the time, and your body thinks, oh, if you're this stressed, there's going to be bad times. Let's store fat so you have energy to make you survive longer, right? And so
Right.
muscle is
Yeah.
a detriment. So let's use cortisol. It will get rid of all that darn muscle that's using all that energy up and we're going to
Right.
store fat for you and then you're going to live longer. That's exactly or
Right.
the more times you've lost weight and gained weight, it doesn't get easier every time. It gets harder every time because your body's like, oh, I
Mhm.
know what you're doing. You're going to starve me forever. So I'm going to slow things down for you so you can last longer. Right. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's amazing how much our body and our brain, everything's, and like you said, all
Mhm.
these memories that we don't even, they're in our subconscious. We don't even
Right.
think about because your body's like, you can't deal with it. Your brain's telling you can't deal with that
Right.
right
Yeah.
now. So it's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah,
So your
it
test,
is.
like from the testing itself, if I came in and got tested,
Mhm.
how long does it take to do the testing part of it?
It is about 40 minutes to do the testing, and then
Really?
yeah, it's not too long. And then I have you fill out some paperwork, and while that's happening, and then I can do all my part to get the report and stuff ready. So, within an hour and a half, we can have the whole thing done. And I didn't mention we do also have a second type of assessment, and that's called a neurocatch. A neurocatch is an evoke response potential, and we use that primarily for people that we want to do research with. Because I mean, if you want to talk about objective, it's like, that's really objective. It's kind of like taking a blood pressure reading, it's
Yeah,
like you're
exactly.
going to get the reading. And so the evoke response potential of neurocatch looks at the N100, which is auditory sensation. So you put on a cap, like an EEG cap, and it's tracking it. There are beeping sounds. How quickly does your brain respond to the fact that there is a sensation coming into your auditory system? Then the P300 is basic attention. And so what that's tracking is when there are variant sounds, there's different beeps. Does your brain respond to the different beeps? And then the third part is the N400, which is cognitive processing. And so the system is, you have headphones in, and it's saying words in pairs. And all you're doing is you're thinking, does it match or mismatch? Yes or no? And it actually tracks whether you're saying match or mismatch or how much response your brain is giving to that. And at the end of the day, then it's going to give a reading and we get to look at it and see. So how responsive is first of all, how fast is your brain responding and how much of a response is it giving? And we can really tell a lot from that because when people come in and they're having difficulties, we will see a very large range of responses in both sectors. So the brain will not respond consistently with patterning the sound. The sound is coming in my ear. It gives a really big, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's really lagging. And so there's a big range. And then the amplitude, which is how much response is being given. Sometimes it'll be really like it's like it didn't even happen. So it's a really low response. And sometimes it'll be a huge response. So you come in and you get this huge amplitude difference as well. And after you do cognitive function development therapy, what happens with the brain is that you see those things shrink and the down. And so the brain becomes consistent. And so instead of having this big range, it'll fire very consistently when it hears the sounds. And it will be very consistent in how it responds. So sometimes higher, bigger isn't better because a very high amplitude response means that the system is on tense mode. It's too much of a response. It's like hyper vigilant. And so actually coming back down and being kind of more in the middle is better. So, and then, not responding enough, which is on the low end, is really hypovigilant, meaning, wow,
Yeah, you can think of
stuff
it
is
like
getting by you.
I'll tell that to people. I go, it's kind of like a car alarm. Like some people, the car alarm's so sensitive that the wind blows and it goes off and you run out. It's like, oh my gosh, someone's stealing my car. And it keeps happening all day and you keep doing the same thing. And other people,
Right,
it's not sensitive at all. Someone steals your car and the alarm doesn't go off and you need to, and so finding that, okay, where's the right setting? So the
right.
guy blasting his music doesn't set my car alarm off, but I want to go off when I know there's an issue, right? This stress response is supposed to happen when we need it at the moment, but so many of us are stuck in that mode and we can't get out of
Yeah,
it. And so
right.
it's amazing what you're doing. And then you do repeat testing and you see how the brain
Mhm.
responds differently. And that's so
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's really fun. And we've got all these great stories and people come back to us
Tell
all
us
the
some stories. I want
time.
people to hear stories. Like,
Oh,
so if someone
yeah.
out there struggling with some of these things, say, look, this person came in with this situation and here's what they ended up with.
So, let me share. I'll share a story about an 8-year-old that came in, and this was 9 years ago. So, 9 years ago, 8-year-old came in. He was very diagnosed ADHD, was in school with special ed, just really having a difficult time reading and writing and the whole shebang. He did 6 months of our therapeutic modality. And he had such a tremendous change that his mother was amazed. All these years later now, first of all, he graduated out of special ed. He is a junior in high school now. He's already prepped to go to college. He's on it's the jury, not the debate team, but it's mock trial.
Yeah, mock
So
trial. Yeah,
he's doing the
exactly.
mock trial, and he's just thriving. And that whole presentation of ADHD just isn't it just doesn't happen now. He doesn't have those, overactive times. And it's really interesting because I had posted something on Facebook, regarding a story from a different person. And the mom actually posted his story on Facebook and was saying, hey,
That's
here's what's
him.
happening
Wow.
now. And she was like so thankful. Like she was thankful that she trusted me in particular because I was the one that did the assessment and everything. And I said, hey, this is going to work. And so she wanted to shout that out, which I thought was so nice.
Well, do you
And
see
so
do
that
you
was
ever
it.
see on the assessment that you go, this probably isn't going to work for you or no?
Hmm. Well, yeah. So it's more on how the person is presenting. So a couple things with the assessment for not working. So if you've got someone who is maybe 3 standard deviations below the norm, so in other words, here's average, and their function is just really, really low, we would have to work a really long time. So there is kind of a threshold for functionality that we're going to need in order to make things work. Um, and then there's really more of a you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink type of scenario that goes
Yeah.
on. So if you have someone who comes in that's super combative, like if they were maybe court ordered or something like
Yeah,
that,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And
and then
that
you're
holds
like, "Ooh,"
true among everything. Because if I have someone come to me and they go, "Yeah, my husband wants me to be here, but I don't want to be here," I was like, "Okay, you
right,
guys figure it out because you're not going to have success, I'm pretty sure. Like until you're bought in. Same thing. I even talked to hypnotists. I go, who can't you hypnotize? They
Hmm.
say people who aren't bought in. They don't think it's going to help them. They don't think it's a problem. If they think smoking is not a problem, my husband's just worried about it. Then they don't quit smoking, no matter, because they're
Yeah.
subconsciously you can't touch
Right.
that, right? Because they don't believe it's a
Yes, that's
problem.
right. Yeah, exactly. I have another story. This is on the other end of the spectrum. So this is 73-year-old, 70, yeah, 73-year-old. And she was in an assisted living, and she was so anxious, and like she would be so bothered by stimulation around her that she had to shut her curtains if the wind was blowing hard, because the leaves, just the movement of the leaves would set her on edge. And she couldn't go down to the dining room and actually eat with other people because all of the people talking and everything would just, really trip her up. And she did a little bit longer time working with her therapist, but oh, and she had been a women's counselor. So prior, in her professional life, she had, a really good job, really high function and everything. So being, only 73 and in this situation was really not what she wanted. So she was a very willing participant, is what I'm saying, and she worked really hard. Well, long story short, is she had great results. I think it was probably almost a year, maybe 9 months worth of sessions, and 2 times or 3 times a week. And then she was able, because she made so much progress, she moved out of assisted living. Like, who does that, right? And then she had moved into a rental, and she was feeling so confident in everything that she decided to pull the trigger on a lifelong dream of hers, which was to build this home that she had always dreamed of building. And so she acted as kind of her quasi own contractor. So she would put input on all the decisions and everything like that. And here's what's even wilder. So just the end of last year, she's now, well, she probably turned 81, but she was 80 then. And she reassessed, and her assessment scores were all either the same or a little bit higher. So if anyone tells you that your cognitive functions have to decline and you have to just go downhill because the numbers keep on going up for your age, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, if you
So
if you exercise, right, you get stronger. If you get your brain
that's right.
rewired and you have this neuroplasticity, and especially if you have other neurons that you can start getting to work for you, that's
Yeah.
if you take away the toxins and all the bad stuff that's damaging the
Hmm.
nerves, right? So these are all
Yes.
really that's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by it because I think, and a question I have, and I don't know if anyone else is
Hmm.
thinking this, but say you have a kid with attention deficit, you come and do testing on them, and then they go
Hmm.
on Ritalin or
Uh-huh.
Adderall or whatever the drug of the choice is. Do you see a change in the amplitudes and stuff with drug management versus
Hmm.
cognitive rewiring?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, the drugs work in it to a certain degree temporarily. I mean, they work when they're on board, right?
Mhm.
And so you would see a bit of a functional change just based on medication, because um, the only thing is that, what's the what's the lasting effect? What's good about doing something like we do is that it's your brain and nervous system, and you are doing it. And so,
You can either rewire and get the wiring right, or you can put duct
yeah,
tape on everything so they don't short circuit all the time.
there
You
you
go,
go.
look, let's just fix the
Yeah,
wiring. Why mess
yeah.
around with this for the next 30 years? Because what's interesting, I don't recall in my career ever having someone over the age of 50 maybe on Adderall or taking Adderall still. So I don't know if they grow out
Mhm,
of that stuff or whether I don't know what it is, but or they just get tired of
mhm,
it or they retired so that it doesn't matter anymore. I don't know, but I don't I always wonder on those things. There's so many drugs that we're
mhm,
using like Xanax and all these nerve calming meds. Like, gosh, if we could rewire the
mhm.
brain, it's
Yeah,
not a natural state to be anxious and stressed all the time. It's just not
no,
normal. So
right.
we have to drug ourselves up all the time, and so it's
Mhm,
amazing because we've seen it too, where when people get their nutrition, sleep,
mhm,
stress right, they don't need though. They go, I haven't taken it in a while. I don't
right.
need it. I feel better. I'm
Yeah.
exercising. I'm doing things. So some of it's just so if I have someone, let me just selfishly
Mhm,
ask, if I have someone
yeah.
says, look, I'm 350 pounds. I'm just lazy. I have no willpower. I just like turn to food whenever I'm stressed out. I hate to exercise. I don't like to get sweaty. It gets too hot or it's too cold outside or it's the, yeah.
Hmm.
Can you take that person and say, let's try to get your brain right so that we can get you on a program where you can do these kind of things?
Yeah, if they're willing to come in and if they're willing to do, I, I want to posit that, doing what we do could help awaken that motivation system as well, because there could be some impact in there, maybe stuck in that negative thinking. Again, that working memory, not updating the information may be part of what's holding them back. If they're willing to come and they're willing to give, something like this a chance that's gonna to help impact that brain, I bet there could be progress made.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing is so many people their whole life they've just said, I'm just this way, I'm weak.
Yeah.
I just can't stick with the program. And so
Hmm.
rewiring that a little bit,
Yep.
that and that's what the other thing is these motor neuron, I mean the mirror neurons, where people see
Mirror
other people
neurons.
doing stuff, they go,
Yeah.
if they're doing it, then maybe I want to be more like them, and they reflect what the other people
Uh-huh.
are doing, and you go, wow. So I've seen huge benefits of, my small group where people go, oh yeah, I was struggling like that too. Here's what I did. And so people have a
Yeah.
little solution out that one of their peers is offering, not me, but it's a peer that's saying, yeah, I used
Hmm.
to have 2 weeks ago, I was a disaster. Here's what I did, and it's working.
Yeah. There's a lot of power in that. One thing we haven't mentioned is hydration. I know we mentioned nutrition and all that. When I'm out doing, speaking and gigs and stuff, I do always try to mention hydration because I think we're chronically dehydrated as a population, and I know that that directly impacts brain function. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Dehydration is there's some interesting data because yeah, there's a book called Nature Wants Us to Be Fat. And
oh,
they're positing this hypothesis that, that high uric acid, which is a sign of poor metabolic health, high insulin
mhm,
are both markers for weight gain. But they were making
yeah,
the point that they said, well, when you see a camel, they say they store all
mhm,
this water in their hump. It's not water, they're storing fat. And when you break down
oh,
fat, you get water release. So if you're dehydrated all the time, your body says, "Uh-oh, store extra fat so you have water for later when you need it," because things are getting bad. So being hydrated
right,
actually, there's a huge pathway in this that where these the diuretic hormone and all these hormones act
mhm.
together, and yeah, if you're chronically dehydrated, you're going to store more fat. It's a stress response. It's a stress. It causes cortisol release and all these other things that we don't even think about.
Oh, yeah, and then that would be in part why it would contribute to memory issues as well. Because if you're upping that cortisol response, then you're going to be confusing the librarian. So just look how that all,
Yeah, you want to take care of the
acts
librarian,
together.
be quiet, have some quiet time for the librarian, peace time, laugh a little bit, all these kind of things too. So, yeah, we touched
Right.
on, and sleep deprivation is another huge one too, right? If you're
Yes.
not
Oh, yeah.
sleeping and you're stressed, you're not sleeping, you're not sleeping, you're more stressed, and you get into this huge spiral too.
And I always talk to people, well, when I do these presentations and stuff, and when I'm just consulting with people, just talking about things brain related, sleep, again, you say sleep is really important. Well, what happens during sleep? Guess what? Memory consolidation. And so 4 stages of sleep and at different times, different types of memory are consolidated. So you got to have all 4 stages. You need to have enough of it. And if you get that part lined up, you're really preparing yourself to have better memory function. So as well.
Oh, Jen, this is great information. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Uh, Before I ask how people can get in touch with you, what's
Yeah.
life's best medicine for you? Like, where do you go when things are hard? Where do you get your motivation to help people? Like, what is life's best medicine? Like, if you would tell your friends what really matters.
Oh, well, I have to say that life's best medicine for me is belief, because belief precedes everything. And for me, belief is faith in God. And so, that really is my foundation. I believe in Jesus, and that is my driving force. But belief is so impactful, and it changes everything, because really what you believe is what you see. So,
I
yeah.
love it. Yeah, that's okay here. Like, that was part of it. Part of the reason I started this podcast is when we talked about faith on my other podcast, Low Carb MD, people get upset. We just want to hear about diet. I'm like, but a lot of people, that's how they get through their hard times. That's how they deal with stress. And
Hmm.
for me personally, I'm the same. And so I
Yeah.
would have people attack me. You're a doctor, you're a scientist, you believe in this hocus pocus stuff. I'm like, well, all I can see is the evidence that I've seen in my life and my friend's life. And
Hmm.
there's no greater testimony than a life change, right? So if you're doing that and you have someone who can't function and they're in a nursing home and all of a sudden they're building a house, you say, well, maybe there's something
Right.
to that. Maybe I'll look into this and see what happens, right? Having kids who are on a bunch of meds and then they don't need them, or
Yeah.
to give. I'll tell you, and this really impacted me because I always thought, yeah, we'll reverse diabetes, that's a huge thing, and people don't realize the impact that of what was coming for them if they didn't fix that problem. But the
Hmm.
most amazing thing and the biggest thing that people have been grateful to when I talk to them is that they
Yeah.
have peace and they're happy and they're laughing again and they're not always stressed and tense and like having
Hmm.
this that I have to eat all day long to be okay. And it's amazing to see someone free. I always think of it like
Hmm.
someone's chained and then their chains hit the ground. You can hear it when they say, yeah, I don't have to eat cookies. Why do I need? I don't need cookies. I'm okay.
Uh-huh.
And it's not like, oh, I have to sacrifice and I have to give. It's like that mindset is so important. So everything you're doing
Hmm.
is so what we're doing together. You think about we get people metabolically healthy, we get their brain healthy. They both bring health. Like it's so
Yes.
critical. It's all, believe it or not, the brain's part of the body too, right? It's
Hmm.
connected, believe it or not. So
Yes.
yeah, when that's why when I heard about what you're doing, I'm like, this is really exciting that we're in the same community in the Prescott area,
Yeah.
and that we can help so many people. So for people
For
who want
sure.
to contact you, track you down, what's the best way
Hmm.
for them to reach out worldwide?
Yeah. Well, pop on over to our website. I think that's probably the most universal way to do things. And it's C like cognitive, F like function, D like development, institute, just the whole word, cfdinstitute.com. And so if you'll go to cfdinstitute.com, you'll find a contact form, you'll find a whole bunch of information and more stories. You can see examples of what the result charts look like and the whole bit. So if you want to get in touch, that would be a great way to do it. I have a LinkedIn page, that's just my name, Jennifer Best, and we could maybe put that on the notes or
And
whatever.
it's
And
Beyst for people.
yeah,
Yeah.
Beist.
And we'll
Yeah,
put
I should
links to all
mention
this
that.
on there too.
Okay.
And then
Sounds good.
we have to plug what we're doing. We're volunteering our time. We're both giving
Yes.
talks at a uh, brain
It,
boot camp. Like how do you stay away from
yes.
us? How do you keep yourself healthy? How do we prevent, staring at the
Yeah.
wall when we're 62 years old?
Right. Yes. So Brain Boot Camp, it's going to be if you're in the Prescott area anywhere around here, it's going to be at the Yavapai College Prescott campus. It's on September 6th of 2025, so just coming right around the corner. It's going to be from 9:30 to 1:30, and for people who are local, we're going to have like raffles and lots of information and awesome food because we're mindful of that. And you're gonna have people able to test out the wonderful.
Yeah, it's free. It's free
Yeah,
too, everyone. It's free. Come out. It's not free for us though. I'm paying stuff. Like what we're paying
I
to get the
know.
room and we're done because it's a community service and we believe strongly
Yeah.
in that. So luckily, my sponsor here, Health Code, who I love, anytime I do anything, they're like, Brian, what do you need? I'm going to Guatemala to the middle of the jungle. What do you need? We'll take care of it. So they're going to send us some good shakes. So if you come, you get free shakes.
Mhm.
They're super great for mental functioning. I've been really excited
Yeah.
about that because, and especially when I threw it out, Jen's like, I know them. That's Ben Bigman stuff, right? So it's
Yes.
it's cool because we're seeing there Hal Cranmer. Some of you have heard me interview him. He has a group home, assisted living down in Phoenix, and he's doing some
Mhm.
amazing work. And so he's using it with his patients there, and people are going
Yeah.
home. Like what Jen's saying, this is rare. Like we all know in
Yeah.
medicine that that's extremely rare. So everyone, if you want to keep your minds, do brain boot camp. It's free. If you're in Arizona, anywhere near us, Utah, wherever, come down. It's a free event, and we're gonna have food and a good time and bunch of great speakers talking about how do we keep our brains healthy in the long term. And there's so much more science that's coming out, and I'm talking a little bit
Mhm.
about metabolic health and how that affects brain function. And we have nutritionists. We have a whole bunch of people that are going to be speaking in that. Like our little half hour time slots, we have to figure out
I
how
know.
we can get all of our verbiage in that short of time. So that's why you have this
Right.
long version you can listen to, and then if you want to hear more, come hear us talk and join us and
Mhm.
ask us questions, and we're gonna have question and answer and all that kind of stuff. And it's a service to the community. Jen, thanks so
Yeah.
much. Thanks for
Oh,
joining
you're
me. I'm so
welcome.
glad we got to do this. When I first started
Mhm.
talking, I'm like, this lady knows a lot of stuff. She's really smart. Yeah, so it's very impressive what you're doing, and
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to working with you, having patients in
Mhm.
common that we can
Yes.
get them on the right track. And then I have to ask, because I know so many people here
Mhm.
listening, because I know the pandemic we're in right now of social phobia, anxiety, panic
Yeah.
attacks. You work with all that stuff, right?
Oh, yes. And depression.
And
We do
PTSD. You're
great.
doing stuff
Yes, PTSD,
with the
depression.
police,
Yeah.
fire department.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
And so, so
So,
if someone has PTSD out there, you can help them. You can help them
mhm.
remodel that and have a different coping mechanism.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Different brain wiring. We can help decouple that trigger response.
Isn't that crazy? We live in this little town, and you're the expert in this stuff, and this is so exciting. I haven't had anyone like this, and all my time in California, so it's so exciting to have you right down the street from me.
Well, thank
So
you.
yeah, it's
Excellent.
great.
It's been great. I really appreciate, being on your show. And I was super excited too. Metabolic health. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean metabolic
It's
health?
wild because
So,
most
yeah.
people in Prescott they're like, what are you talking, like, what is this, like, this is
Oh,
like
yeah.
outside. It's only not about 93% of everything I treat has a metabolic basis. So yeah, they
I
kind of
know.
fit together. And with mental illness, I'm telling you, like,
Mhm.
again, like you've been watching this stuff with Metabolic Mind, and what they're doing is mind
Yeah.
blowing. When I first heard about this, I'm like, come on. And then I saw their data and the outcome. So people, if
Yeah.
you have people in your family struggling with mental illness, if you have them struggling with
Right.
metabolic health and getting the brain rewired,
Mhm.
there's no better combination. So Jen,
That's
have
it.
a great weekend.
Okay.
Thank you so
You
much. And
too.
everyone, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and thanks for listening. And this is platinum level stuff that can help you. Like right now, you might be 26 years old, think this doesn't apply, but all of us have seen
Mhm.
our parents, our friends that have mental
Yeah.
decline and physical decline. So we want to intervene and do that. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Awesome.
So give Jen a call.
Thanks. Yep.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.